is a presentation of Sertoba Media and Comey Media Incorporated.
An NFL legend passes away at only 52 years of age. Justin Jefferson to become the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. And Dalton Kincaid says he's ready for an increased role at tight end for the Buffalo Bills. All that and more on this edition of Total Football Talk. Welcome, one and all. It's that time again. We're back for Total Football Talk episode 40. It's the 40th edition of our show today on this Monday, June the 3rd, 2024, as we are here to recap the UFL's past Week 10 action as the BATTLEHAWKS clinched the XFL division with the win over the Brahmas. I'm your co-host, Drew Willingham, along with the EP of all EPs, my man, Cole Johnson.
Well, how you doing, everybody? Glad to see you all, TFT Tribe. It's good to see you again, Drew, and wonderful introduction.
I'm trying. I feel like it's improving slowly but surely each and every week. I'm moving up the echelon. I'm trying my best to become like the understudy of Cole out here in these streams. Like our teamwork, our passionate, we rock and roll out here when it comes to football and other things that we've discussed out here in these streams. And it's been a great weekend. We've had, the culmination of the first UFL season, regular season, to give us what we're going to see as our first set of playoffs with an XFL conference championship and a USFL conference championship to lead to the following week of us seeing the UFL championship. And we've also got CFL to talk about this week, week one. We've got 8 teams that will play. There's more teams than that in the league. It's weird that week one there's some buys already, but the extended season that they have multi weeks with buys. So we'll be covering that, talking about that. We got a little bit of NFL news. Of course, this time of year, end of May going into June, there's not too much to talk about with NFL unless you're going to the training camps and seeing the rookies and stuff in the action for the first time. But it's not really usually contact, so there's not really much to report. Right. On that, as we would with the UFL and CFL. But besides that, this past weekend, Sertoba Media got something that this show is a part of. And it was a gift by my friends over from the wrestling realm who also have their show called The Championship Culture. But they also live it out here in these streets by making custom championships, not like custom cookie cutter belts that you have like World's Greatest Dad out there with like 4 different things you can choose from for like side plates and all that. This is the Sertoba Media Heavyweight Championship. Big Sexy is what I call it right here. This is definitely, yes, it absolutely is. And you can see you got, the 4 shows I'm a part of, but the one that we're on right now, Total Football Talk, it's got its own custom logo just for the belt. I mean, mainly just to represent the show on the belt, along with the other 4. This goes to show the craftsmanship. You can see the pillars on the side plates along with the main plate. From what they said, they wanted that on there because I am what holds Sertoba Media up. That's basically what their design for that was, for the pillars. And then on the center of that, it's hard to see in this photo, but you can see a bunch of little tiny things that represent microphones. So with us doing what we do together out here in these streams with the podcast, we have representation of all 4 major shows that you have, on Sertoba Media. But most importantly, for this program right here, you have Total Football Talk in representation on the Sertoba Media Heavyweight Championship that now I will share with Cole as we are live. On my shoulder, the Sertoba Media belt. Big Sexy. This is just as much as yours, brother, as it is mine.
I appreciate that. Thank you. To have any part of that belt it's an honor. So I'm humbled and I'm appreciative of that. Thank you.
Every single thing that's on this belt, you've been a part of. I mean, every single show that I have is representation of what we do on a regular basis. I mean, Commander's Gridiron Report's kind of like a seasonal show, but everything else is a regular basis, and you've got your DNA all in that. So I mean, like, I look forward to the day that we see each other in person and we get to take a picture with this belt, because a lot of you is in this belt as much as I am too.
Oh, thank you, man. I'm glad that you now get to and I had a feeling you wanted to, and I think we talked about this actually on air one time, that you wanted to have like some type of championship belt, and now you actually have one.
Yeah, I mean, I got the big gold, but it's a replica. It's kind of sizable like this and feels like a real championship. But this, it's custom design, made specifically for everything that's being built under the brand of Sertoba Media. And you have just as much hand in that, and just as much influence, on certain things and certain creativity that I've made and changes I've made in the past couple of years, since we've gotten up and collaborated out here. And now with our own show, on the 40th episode, we have a championship to celebrate on the 40th episode. I'd love to see what the 50th episode is going to look like. We're already celebrating with championships on episode 40. But, with all that being said, for those of you out there watching it live or watching this, in post-production, hopefully you guys enjoy this just as much as I do. And if we meet up out here in these streets, especially when it comes to media functions, I will be taking this unit here with me. So I want to take pictures with the fans, put it on the website. I've already got a couple with a couple different fans. Just got to update the website at some point at sertoba.com. But with that being said, we've got plenty to talk about when it comes to, UFL and what happened this past weekend. With that being said, we got to take it into the opening drive.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989. On two. Ready? Quick!
Here with the opening drive is, you can see, I'm still trying to put this thing away. That's how big it is. And it's how, it's a massive. Got a little weight to it. But yeah, definitely nice to have. But when it comes to our opening drive here, we had 4 games from this past weekend. And to be honest, Cole, when it came to deciding the game of the week, this was a tough one to decide from this past weekend. I had a tough time deciding what was going to be the game of the week, because, what tipped the scales is the Brahmas and the BATTLEHAWKS game meant the most, because that game decisively decided the conference right there for the XFL conference. The other one had the Panthers beat the Stallions, and depending on how they beat them and other statistics that would have played into it, that would have decided that division. But, we already knew the Stallions were going to win. We just didn't think it was going to be that close. Right. But the game that had the most ramifications was the BATTLEHAWKS and the Brahmas, and we'll talk about that here more in a little bit. But with the Panthers and the Stallions, starting that out, this game was on Saturday. Our 2 best games of the week happened to be on Saturday. And the 2 games that we saw on Saturday are actually going to be repeated this upcoming weekend when we have the conference championships. So, the Panthers going into this game, traveling to Birmingham, taking on the Stallions. And had they beat the Stallions, and depending on in which way is statistically proven at that point, then it would have given them the home game advantage if they would have had that win going into the USFL conference game. But, the Stallions get this game 20-19 on the arm of Adrian Martinez, 163 passing yards and a touchdown. No interceptions. He turned the ball over a couple of times last week. He didn't turn it over at all this week. So that that's what helped tip the scales in this game, is he also had 5 carries for 41 yards. CJ Marable on the ground, 5 carries for only 41 yards, but got the ball in the end zone twice with 2 touchdowns on the ground. Jay Sternberger was the one on the other side of that passing touchdown by Adrian Martinez, as he had 2 receptions for 53 yards in that lone touchdown. The Birmingham Stallions defense was a little quiet on the day, considering they've been the best defense in the league all year long. They had 1 sack on the day, a little quiet. So the Panthers did their job in keeping them guessing on what was going on. At the same time, maybe, I didn't really notice, but maybe some of their top-tier talent on the defense might have been taking it easy on that day to prepare for the following week. That could have been also a factor, but I didn't really notice that as I was watching the game throughout. Danny Etling on the other side of the Panthers, though, he was a big part of why they stayed in the game. 195 passing yards and a touchdown, also with no turnovers, and had 4 carries for 36 yards on the ground to add to that as well. See, O.C. Mariner, 7 receptions, 110 yards and a touchdown. He was the one who received that touchdown from Etling and a big part of why the Panthers stayed in the game. And Devin Gray, 3 receptions on 30 yards, also contributed. The Panthers' defense, though, was the reason why the Birmingham Stallions were held to only 20 points. And we've seen a lot of games throughout this 10-game season where the Stallions had 30-plus points throughout the season. Like, they were whooping that tail all year long. And for the Panthers to hold them to that just gives you a preview of this matchup we're going to see next week, for one. And we'll cover that here in a little bit. But for two, these were the 2 best teams in the USFL division for a reason. And we got to see that on display in this Week 10 matchup. And with that being said, we also had Jake Bates, who was 2 of 3 on field goals for the day. And this was the decisive factor. Like, literally at the end, it's sad to say it, but with 3 seconds left in the game, he was 2 of 2 on field goals for the day. We talked about, many times in this show throughout this season about Jake Bates and the potential to go to the NFL. But we're getting down to the times where a kicker's definitely needed when the pressure is on. And you're 2 of 2 on the day, and you've kicked 60-plus yard field goals 2 to 3 times already throughout the season at least. And you're here to do your job on a 53-yard field goal, and you shank it with 3 seconds left. That shows a lot right there, Cole. With all that being said, with that being the decisive factor of why the Panthers didn't win this game, didn't make things interesting going into this playoff run, what are your thoughts going back on this Week 10 matchup as we get ready for next week?
Well, it shows that actually what I think I wanted to see happen. I wanted the Panthers to give the Stallions a game. I wanted them to it definitely the Panthers defense. I wanted their defense to make the Stallions offense work for their points and work for their yards. And if that's the case, that would put them within striking distance of winning. You can't ask any more than to be down 1 point with, even though 53 yards is not a gimme, but with a leg like Jake Bates, it pretty much is the situation you would want. You're down 1 with less than 5 seconds left. You could try a field goal from a makeable distance with the kicker. You really can't, and you're in hostile territory. You can't ask for anything better than that. So I'm proud of the Panthers defense for stepping up. They gave the Stallions, which they've been, like you said, running amok offensively, and they had to have them work to get 20 points. That is a plus. Hopefully this could go into next week when they go back to Birmingham and play. But that's the plus that I see. The minus that I see, though, is you now have a kicker that I think when you have this happen, although he's made some big ones. I mean, heck, we started the year off, well, the UFL year off with him making a 64-yard field goal with no time remaining. So he knows how to make pressure kicks with the time expiring. Now the question is, can he do it on a bigger stage? And technically, this was a bigger stage, although, yes, this was still the regular season. But the USFL division was still in play for them, depending on other things that were to transpire. So now you have to see if he can be the difference. And to me, he has been the difference to me with the Panthers. I look at them as how Jeff Fisher loved to play games. He was the type that he wanted to have a power offense, pounding running game, take shots downfield with the passing game, but not throw it all that much. Rely on defense with the pass rush and run stopping so you can force the D to throw. And he would want to force teams to play ugly. And the Panthers love to force teams to play ugly, and they got a chance to force the Stallions to play ugly. This was a Panthers style of game. But I think what the Stallions proved is that, yeah, they can hang playing that style of game and still win because they were able to execute one play more. Hopefully that can stay the case next week, and hopefully we can have another 1-point game between these two teams. But good game. I love what I saw. But yeah, the Panthers were proven that they just went a little bit short compared to how the Stallions are.
Yeah, just a little bit. Just a little bit short they were. And, you break it down to a T. It's like we wanted to see this. We were talking about this last week, how we wanted to see the two of them go into this week, not really sit anybody. That's why I was saying, I didn't really notice the Stallions really sitting anybody to try to prepare, for a little bit of rest, since in UFL, you don't have any bye weeks because it's 10 quick weeks. But it's only 10 games for one, and you're playing in a warmer environment for the most part. So, I mean, it's kind of a little bit colder at the beginning of the year, but as you go forward, it's the reversed effect of the NFL as to where everybody's all prime and fresh to start the first couple months of the season. In the last couple months, you're dealing with weather that's affecting, the cold temperatures that can definitely affect your body, and more injuries can occur when you got colder weather out there and you don't prepare for it the right way. So there's a lot that definitely comes in with that. We got a couple comments already in the house. Sick Diggy is in the house. I'll let you read this one. This is definitely one for you.
God born again, God dog, God gewillt, God not. Or good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. And hopefully my Norwegian was good, sir. To you, Sick. It's a pleasure to see you again, as always, brother.
Definitely appreciate you out here. Sick was there when we were talking about the creation of the belt last night. Was a part of it from end to end. We're talking about how one of my dudes out there saw he only had one red stone on the belt. The entire belt had one red stone, and then it fell out.
Oh no.
Yeah. Oh wait, no, that was a different belt. I'm telling you, guys see it. He has like 100 belts in his collection at least. I mean, it's a lot. My man, the custom guy, he definitely has a great collection. And Ike is here. He's been watched for quite some time. What's up, homies, with the Z?
How you doing, Ike? It's good seeing you again, brother.
With that, we acknowledge Sick and Ike.
Acknowledge me.
Facts here in these streets. But guys, thank you for the comments. Keep them coming, as we got plenty to talk about. But right there, we just talked about the first game in action for this past weekend, that being when the Michigan Panthers traveled to Birmingham and lost to the Stallions 20-19. With that being said, we'll take this to our next game. Next game that we got here on the slate was our highest scoring contest of the week. And if these two teams were actually, fighting for something, other than like bragging rights from the win or preparing for the next year, then, I would have put it a little bit higher on our recap, but with this, 32-31 was our final score here. 32-31 as the Arlington Renegades, a team that has been definitely struggling all year long. I mean, a team that finishes 3-7. They're 4-6 last year, but they finished this year 3-7 after everything that they have battled through all year long. Same team for the most part. Luis Perez is your main quarterback still, coming from the XFL to the UFL. A lot of the players still the same. I mean, he comes in here, does his job. He does a little bit more of a job than what our slate says. I don't know what happened there. I promise you, he had more passing yards than that, Cole, and we're going to break that down right now. I know yours says 2, right? Does yours say 2 when you look at
Mm-hmm.
your slate? Yeah, I don't
Yes,
know
2 passes.
what. Yeah. I mean, I had a typo. I mean, like I told you earlier, we both your job, mine. We had a lot going
Mm-hmm.
on. But what I can tell you is the man had 215 passing yards on the day, a lot more than 2. He had 3 touchdowns, 2
Mm-hmm.
interceptions on
Okay.
the day. He did his job. Okay, that
Yeah.
is why this team was in position to win the game. But what really put them in position was the fact that they had a running back that ran for 94 yards. The
Yeah.
Arlington Renegades, big reason why they lost 7 of those games. They were close in a lot of them, but the biggest
Mm-hmm.
thing, the decisive factor was their running back core.
The lack,
Okay.
yeah, the
They
lack
were
of
having,
running.
yeah, they were having like 30 running yards here,
Mm-hmm.
58 running yards there. We had a couple of teams we'll talk about here in a little bit that hit those peak numbers, I guess we'll say, when it comes to the lack thereof. But
Mm-hmm.
for him, for the Renegades to have a running back that got 94 yards, that being Davion Smith, I think he only did that for like the second or third time this year. And ironically, they only have now 3 wins after coming back from 4-6 season last year. That the way the XFL was designed, unfortunately, they made it to the championship game with a 4-6 record. Going backwards, 1 less win and 1 more loss this year, they weren't anywhere close to sniffing the playoffs. So you got to make some changes this offseason when it comes to their team. But putting everything in perspective, besides Luis Perez, besides Davion Smith, Tyler Vaughn's, though, 5 receptions, 84 yards, and had 2 of those 3 touchdowns from Luis Perez. Sal Cannella, 7 receptions, 52 yards on the day as well. And the Renegades defense, 3 sacks on the day, which definitely contributed towards their production to keep them atop 32-31 to end the day. Jordan Ta'amu, 218 passing yards on the other side for the defenders, 2 touchdowns, along with the whopping 2 carries for 9 yards on the day. The Smiths on the other side of it for the receivers, Brandon Smith, 2 receptions, 51 yards, and 1 touchdown. And I promise that's not a typo. That's how it's spelled. Vincent Smith, 1 reception, 43 yards, and a touchdown. Those 2 touchdowns contributed to Jordan Ta'amu's 2 touchdowns, which is what kept them in the game. But the fact that the defenders' defense had 2 interceptions from Luis Perez, this game could have gone the other way. I mean, he
Mm-hmm.
could have gave the defenders the game with those 2 interceptions. But what we just talked about was the pro for the Renegades. The
Yeah.
defenders went and regressed this week as they only had 38 rushing yards as a total team between all
Mm-hmm.
their running backs on 12 attempts. It did somehow muster 1 touchdown, but 38 yards on 12 attempts and a touchdown is pretty weak on the day, and they're lucky to be able to put 31 yards up on the day after all that. So, with all that being said, looking back on it, what are your thoughts with this game being for as close as what it was, a high-scoring game at that?
Mm-hmm.
But we got some dumpster Pelican stats by both the teams in some aspects. But the Arlington Renegades, had it not been for those 2 interceptions, they would have been up by more.
Well, yeah. Well, look, I'm thoroughly impressed that you had a quarterback that threw for 2 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, it's just what? No, I'm talking. Hold on a second. It's impressive when you have a stop. Hold on a second. He threw for 2 passing yards and 3 It's a what? Okay, fine. Oh, typo. He threw 215 yards. Okay, my bad. I'm sorry. No. What I really like about the Renegades, again, they just fight. They just keep fighting. They keep fighting. They keep fighting. They're in it. They're in it. They're in it. And I think this was a positive end to their season. I'm not just talking about this game, just the last few games, the last month or so. Because those close losses that they were having with these types of games, now they turned around with W's, and they can build on this. And if they can get that core established for next year, they will have a really good springboard into saying, okay, well, we fought together. We learned how to win as a team. We learned how to fight as a team. We learned how to grow in adversity as a team. Now, we get put it together next year and be problematic for the rest of the league. So this was good. Now, I would love to see the defense improve a little, but it was good all the same. From the defender standpoint, come on. I know that you didn't get as many yards as you'd like per carry for 12 carries, but 38 yards. No. You need to do more on the ground. I mean, no, because you make it easier for the defense to key on what you're doing. If they know that you're not going to run the ball, but a scan amount of times, all right, okay, so we can sometimes even drop 7, sometimes even drop 8, and just rush 3. I mean, it could get to that ridiculous level, knowing that you're going to throw the ball anywhere and everywhere. So to me, it seemed like your defenders just they didn't quite have a feel for the season, and it was just up and down for them. And when they would start getting going, then they would have these roadblocks like now, where they just hit a brick wall. And as an analyst, it's frustrating to see. I know as a fan, it's frustrating to watch. But I think if they can put together the understanding of they know they need to run the ball, obviously, and they've had success running the ball. Last week we talked about them running for almost 170 yards. So they know that they need to run the ball. So it's not a philosophical lapse. They know that's what they need to do. They need to commit to it more, and I think they would actually profit better. I know the defense would love them more if they did commit to the run more. But for the Renegades, man, this is a great victory for them.
Yeah, it's very uplifting considering how they started so many games without a win. Were they up to 0-6?
It was 0-6.
Yeah, it was tough. We were wondering when they were going to get there first, when or if at that. And luckily, it was the Roughnecks, and we'll get to them here shortly, that ended the season with 1 win. But it's pretty bad that out of 10 games you can only get 1 win. I can see if it was like 5 or 6 game season, maybe getting 1, but 10, you should at least be getting 2, like the Showboats.
Yeah.
But that was definitely the Dumpster Pelican Bowl. We'll get to here in a few minutes. But we got the Playmakers blog in the house saying Sensei Drew and Co Sports with the Z in the house.
How you doing, Playmaker? Good to see you again, brother.
And we're talking about typos in here. I'm gonna edit Sick Dickie's typo. Breaking news: Peanut Butter and Jealous will be bringing their all-time favorite bacon jerky flavor back for the month of June. Enjoy while supplies last all this month. You don't like bacon?
Heck no.
Oh man, I love bacon. If you could have bacon. See, this is what ruined it for me. They have this thing because we had got the Richmond Flying Squirrels here in Richmond. It's like our minor league baseball team over there. So nearby is like this little burger spot, and they had the Flying Squirrel burger, which is literally a burger on Texas toast with peanut butter and bacon. And I didn't think it would be that good. Now, you know why El Jefe and I have mutual activities we have discussed out here on these streets at time. So imagine that type of mindset at 2 a.m. and you get that burger in you, right? It tasted great. So
it did.
In that moment, I'm thinking now, bacon-flavored peanut butter and Jealous. That's what I'm talking about. That's why Sick has a typo right there. Still love him. He doesn't eat bacon, but just remember, that's the all-time favorite flavor of peanut butter and Jealous. You get it right. Okay.
I'm 100% with you, Sick. I don't dig on the swine.
Well, sorry, I'm from America, and America loves bacon.
Believe me, I know. Goodness gracious. Believe me, I know. They'll put bacon on dirt. It doesn't matter.
I don't take it that far with me now.
Maybe not with you.
I'm bougie with my bacon, all right? We'll talk about our chef choices on another show at some point. When we have you on Beyond the Streams talking about, other things outside the streams, we'll talk about our choices where we want our bacon, even though you don't want the bacon, but I'll tell you where I want mine. And what I want to know, not the dirt.
No problem with that.
Not the dirt. But what would you do without your assistant at Cole Sports at that point with your paper and figuring that out? Yes. Yes, we'll say that they removed the 1 and the 5 when I sent it in the mail.
1 and the 5.
The 2 was there, just the 1 and the 5 wasn't.
The 2 was there, but the 1 and the 5 just disappeared. Yeah.
Yeah, he said, "Oh, my bad, I got the wrong flavor. It's all good. Yeah, it's all good. You got one of your other shows mixed up. It's all good, I guess." But what's good at Playmakers Blog Network? And playmakers out there, you'll see Playmaker tonight on In or Out Sports Debate episode 109. Actually, got to give him a shout out real quick. You'll see him and Cool McCain tonight. Cool McCain's second appearance on the show. You've got Playmaker's first appearance. That's the most of his face you're going to see. Is right there in that promo.
Drew, under the Darnell Playmaker Silence name, who is that guy?
That's the hardest working content creator in all the land.
Oh, well, there's something's wrong, because either he would be hiding under a mask with a hacker, or he'd have a pop go. I'm sorry, my bad.
Oh, speaking of which, because you're the genius to put that together, and we have a show together. Can you send me that so I can play that I can play that tonight when I introduce him?
Okay. Sure.
Wait, the Chris Bass, the high, dude. I'm telling you, that is one of my out of all the things you've ever made. That's in my top 5. Okay, the things that are my favorite that you've ever made are things that don't even involve me. And that's one of them. Okay, I love everything you've done for me, but I try not to be biased. I try to be fair. But I'm telling you, that's in the top 5, probably in the top 3. When Chris Bass goes on his rant about the witness protection program, I lose it every single time. It's going to be hard for me to produce a show tonight and compose myself while clicking that button.
Oh, God. Broadcast witness protection program. Okay. Let's see if I can find it. All right.
But also, Stream Element says, subscribe now and never miss out on new content. Make sure you do that for Comey Media and Sartoba Media on YouTube, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Twitch right now, and your other major platforms. We hope to extend our program to at some point down the road. Sick Dicky also says the broadcast protection program. Yes, as we definitely reiterated that. But, like we said with the Renegades and the Defenders, this game right here, at least the Renegades definitely get to go out on a high note like you were talking about.
Right.
They get to look forward to what's at stake for next season. They know that what they did this year didn't work, and they have to make changes, whether it be at the top with the coaching, which the next team we're going to talk about. We got some questions that you and I will answer later on the show about some things, but when it comes to some of these dumpster Pelican-esque results that we got from these teams, they're going to be answering some questions here in this summer once things are all said and done and trying to figure out what's up for 2025. Our next game on the slate, we have the Houston Roughnecks and the Memphis Showboats. This game right here, I would say, was the dumpster Pelican Bowl of the week and of the year, would you say? The year, yes. I mean, it's amazing that the Showboats put up 19 points. But both teams coming into this game with only one win. Yeah. They were both 1-8 to come into this game. It's absolutely terrible. Like, you should be ashamed of yourself at this point. Come into this 1-8, even if you win. What are you bragging about? You got 2 wins, but you went into your last game with 1 win. Congratulations, you didn't completely suck like the other team that finished the season with 1 win. And he says, yeah, that program, Playmaker still with us out here in these streams, says, yeah, that program. So, yeah, he already knows. If he's listening, he already knows what Cole and I are cooking up. Cole ain't going to be there, but he's going to be there in spirit when I click that button. That's what's going to happen.
Oh, my.
It's very soon, which I got to gear up with you and Kyle here soon. We got to figure this out too with our episode, because you saw that little snippet I made of us talking last week. Us talking about Kyle Nash. Kyle Nash loved the blank out of that too. He really did. I hit up the next day. See, I hit him up when I hit him up, it's not like yo or hi. It's Kyle Nash. He hits me up with the Drew William. That's how we say hi. We say our names. This is our relationship. So I get a Drew William. Yeah, I get a Drew William the next day. And I got a love reaction. He loved it. So
good.
And then Sick also says, at the end of the day, both teams came into the game with absolutely nothing to lose. I mean, you're right about that. You're absolutely right about that. And they did, as in this game, the Houston Roughnecks travel to Memphis and they lose 19-12. And Josh Love for the Showboats puts up 152 yards in the air with 1 interception, has 4 carries for 4 yards, average of 1 yard per carry. The Showboats running backs, a story we've been talking about all year long with this team in particular, and why they came into this game with a 1-8 record. 58 rushing yards on the day on 15 attempts with 2 touchdowns. Congratulations on your 2 touchdowns, but everything else sucked. you had 15 attempts for 58 rushing yards. I mean, come on, guys. What are you doing out here in these football fields? You ran it 15 times. You did a little bit better than the defenders. Defenders, 12 attempts, 38 yards and a touchdown. Ooh, you had one more touchdown on 3 more attempts and 20 more yards. You had 3 more attempts for 20 yards and an extra touchdown. You did better on the 3 attempts for 20 yards for a touchdown than you did for the previous 38. So you should be ashamed of yourself coming into this dumpster Pelican Bowl of the year. Here's we cover you on Total Football Talk. Next, we got Jonathan Adams, 6 receptions, 59 yards, with Sage Surratt, 3 receptions on 30 yards. You got lucky you won the game on those numbers. And then, the defense didn't do anything to really put up there to get excited about, because now we have to talk about the quarterback play for the Roughnecks. A reason why this team finishes the year with a 1-9 record is Reed Sinnett, 16 passing yards on the day. That is not a typo, Cole Johnson. I promise you, that is not. I made sure. I almost put that in bold just because of how bad it was. 16 passing yards on the day with 1 interception. Nolan Henderson takes over for him because he is so terrible, and does 232 passing yards on the day with 4 carries for 43 yards. And guess what, guys? Nolan Henderson, the backup quarterback who came in and threw 232 passing yards, not only led the day for both sides in passing yards, but led the day for his team in running yards with 4 carries for 43 yards. He had less carries than some of his other players on his team, more yards, more production, led the team. But your team still did so bad that you lost. You definitely had a case of the isms on that day. You guys were not playing it right. I mean, Kirk Merritt also 5 receptions, 75 yards, and Justin Hall, who's been the bright spot of the Houston Roughnecks this year. I mean, he's the main person that we're talking about in highlights in all 10 games. I don't think there's been one slate that you and I have had where we're not talking about, well, except for the mystery slate last week, but I still talked about him. Justin Hall, luckily because of Fox's website, I was able to read off of it last week. But this week we got legit slates. So Justin Hall, 8 receptions, 80 yards on the day. But that wasn't enough, along with Kirk Merritt's 5 receptions for 75 yards, to help the Roughnecks over the hump and get the win instead of get the loss, fall to 1-9. What are your thoughts on the Dumpster Pelican Bowl of the year that we saw in Week 10? Here it comes. Oh, yeah.
Good God. All the bird droppings all over the place. Okay, screw it.
Let me talk to you.
Yes.
Both the Showboats and the Roughnecks, you should be ashamed of yourselves for combining for 3 wins throughout the entire season. Showboats, you shouldn't even think about this as a W. I mean, you all played horrible and still won only by a touchdown. But how can I put this? I would rather a Pop Warner league team be on TV than you, and that's you. Now, for the Roughnecks, they're supposed to represent my former hometown. Man, what a difference a year makes. You looked pretty good when you had Bum Son, that's what we affectionately call him, or Wade Phillips, coached the team last year when the Roughnecks were in the XFL. But of course, I know the Roughnecks blended in with the Gamblers, so I get that for this year. And then Bum's son went to San Antonio, and it looks like Bum's defense went with them. And it also looked as if the running game that you had and the speed that went with them too, Goodness gracious. I thought I saw bad football when the Texans would just simply circle the drain.
Mm.
When Matt Schaub was busy throwing pick sixes every single game. I thought I saw bad football then. And it was bad football. But that's considered Super Bowl caliber compared to the 1-9 season that we saw from you all this year. You got to do much better than that. Goodness gracious. And look, I'm not going to take any more of this airtime and steer it more off the rails than it already is. But since off the rails, I just mentioned, this has been your season since opening kickoff of game 1. You know how thank you, sir. You know how bad it is. I'd rather see the full video of this than you.
Delete! 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 Delete!
But I'm not going to bore and upset our wonderful tribe and my brother. Oh, goodness gracious. Like, unfortunately, you all have, Roughnecks. Goodness.
Oh, I love it. That was definitely a great recap of the Dumpster Pelican Bowl of the year. I mean, you brought it up and you volleyed it up, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to run with it for a little bit for a second. They are definitely the 1 and 2, the very top of the Dumpster Pelican food chain right here. Now, we haven't seen enough of it. Let's loop this unit for a second. They are 1 and 2 on the chain right here. They should be ashamed of themselves. Of course, you got the Renegades slightly behind them. But other than that, they are, you see how they're the top 2 right there? Like, they're a little bit ahead of the pack. They've got a little bit more dung underneath them because they're so much full of it because it's dropping on top of that Food Lion bag that's right there. That's how creative we are. They are the 1 and 2 of the league, the division, everything when it comes to the UFL out here in these fields.
Not
the UFL.
The Food Lion bag. Oh Lord! Next thing you know, you're gonna say there's a Winn-Dixie bag that blows right next to it. Oh my gosh!
Six got something for you.
Oh, okay. Cole or at Cole Sports with a Z. These Dumpster Pelicans are gold mine for certain folks. After all, pelican droppings can be converted into guano, aka organic fertilizer, and that is all these bird brains are worth. Fertilizer.
Okay.
What you mean? Don't you dare send that one? I'm sorry.
Straight got them out here in these streams today. We are rocking and rolling when it comes to that.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Again, you've got the Chris Base witness protection program for Playmaker. We need to have something out there with Vicola on a milk carton. Because where have you been?
On a milk carton. Oh, wow.
He's been missing for a while. We haven't seen him in the comments with like Playmaker and Sick in them. That's why I had to. I miss clicking that button. That's why in the past 2 weeks I found a way to click it. Somebody extend this message to our man and try to tell him we moved the day and time. He hasn't been on here since we moved the day and time.
They put him on a milk carton. Wow.
And now it's time for the game of the week that we have for Total Football Talk right here. And that is the game that decided. The game that decided the whole conference for the XFL. And you know that there's a bold statement within this part of the slate, Cole Johnson.
And
You know I'm
now
gonna get
I
to it.
know why you picked this the game of the week. Okay.
Hey,
Go ahead, sir.
he contributed. He contributed. We're about to get to it right now when it comes to his contributions. But before that, the biggest contribution on the day, we were talking about how the past couple of weeks for the BattleHawks, they've been under fire a little bit because AJ McCarron wasn't there dealing with the ankle injury. Comes back after a couple weeks, and he didn't put up stellar numbers, but he did a lot better than the previous backup quarterback who last week threw 3 interceptions. We were talking about how that cost them last week. Well, this week, A.J. McCarron did a better job taking care of the ball as the leader and threw 115 passing yards with a touchdown and an interception. And then, even though he's got a bum foot right now, he had 4 carries for 12 yards. I mean, for somebody who's in pain, I got to give him props for that.
He gutted it out.
And you see in the picture too, his run right here that set up on the last drive. This set up the first down to help them clinch the game right here. That's why I made sure. Look at our man in the background. Look how excited he is. AJ McCarron get the bum foot, helping extend the play, get the first down, and seal the deal for the win right there. But besides what AJ McCarron did, the rest of the team, Jacob Sailors, who's been a big part of their running game for the year, he had a quiet day, but 12 carries, 50 yards, 2 receptions for 7 yards as well to help out with the receiving game. But Ja'Cour Pearson, who's been a big name for their team as well, 3 receptions for 36 yards. But it was Stephen Mitchell Jr. who had the 1 reception for 22 yards and a touchdown that helped seal the deal for the BattleHawks in this game. The BattleHawks defense a little bit quiet in comparison to what they've been doing throughout the year, but enough to get the job done in this game. 2 sacks for 1 interception. Quentin Dormady, the backup quarterback who came in for Chase Garbers when he got hurt, midway through the season, has been a big part of keeping stability within that offense too. Didn't really have the greatest day for himself, and hopefully he can bounce back from that in this upcoming week, as he had 188 passing yards for only 1 touchdown. It was Jontre Kirkland who had 127 reception yards of those 188 yards from Quentin Dormady on 7 receptions for those 127, and also that 1 lone touchdown that kept them in the game, but yet they still lost by a point. Calvin Turner, 3 receptions, 36 yards on the day, but the biggest stat line of the day, and we got a little clip out there, a little short out there in the streams, and plus the full video where you can see it from not too long ago, when I really got hype about this guy right here. And you can see Cole's expressions on his face. He's like, oh, man, what are we doing right here? But the man we're going to talk about right here is Tyrone Alizé McDummy. After learning his lesson from not playing the previous week when he had a DNP, he was basically putting time out for sucking the week before and the week before that and pretty much all season long. And guess what Tyrone Alizé McDummy did? Guess what he did, Cole? He had 1 reception on the day on 1 target. He was only allotted 1 target. You get 1 chance to redeem yourself. And what did he do? He caught the ball for 8 yards. Expletive, yes, he did. He absolutely did his job. And you should be proud of him. And I'm a little bit proud of him, as I'm throwing a little bit of shade on Tyrone Alizé McDummy.
Delete! 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 Delete!
From the Cowboys to the Brahmas. Cowboys like receiver numbers. Now from that to the production of this team and losing. Do you think the Brahmas lost this game because Tyrone Alizé McDummy had a reception or didn't have enough receptions?
Hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell no, no, to the no, no.
Muted.
Why? Thank you, sir. Why are we focused on a man who may have been out 3 or 4 snaps the whole game? Why?
It's the legend of T-Mac, the legend of Tam.
Tam, Lord. I just don't understand it. I was like, okay, well, okay, so yeah, it was a 1-point game. It was exciting. I know it was for it was for a division, but it was picked. And, oh yeah, and in the game of the game winning drive, but it was picked because Alizé Mack had a reception for 8 yards. Man. Only true.
But besides that, I mean, at least outside of the running joke that we have with Tam, you got to look at everything else that happened within this slate here. You got to at least say that, the decisive factor here in this was, AJ McCarron coming back. I mean, had they not had that leadership, we would not have seen that, type of display from this team. And I spoke to Chase Garbers. He actually came in for a series and threw that one interception that the Battlehawks defense had. So that itself may have been the decisive factor in the game. When you think of Garbers comes in, they're trying to get him to get him back in the game. He throws an interception. And that, it's still a 1-point game in the game. Had he not thrown the interception, he still got a field goal out of it. We could be talking about a different outcome and a different XFL conference champion for the regular season.
Yeah. But this is exactly what I was thinking would happen if McCarron actually stepped on the field. This just goes to show that you don't necessarily need your quarterback to throw fantasy football numbers to make a difference and to make an impact. Because I just felt that he seems to ground the team and he seems to focus the team, and that's what you need your quarterback to do. If he has the all-world arm, if he has the brain that rivals Rain Man, and if he has a fleet of foot like Michael Vick, all at the same time, all of that is beneficial and a plus and something you would want in your quarterback. But if all he can do is say to the other 10 on his own offense that you can do it and give hope to the 11 on the other side of the ball just because he's on the field, then the quarterback has done his job. And I had a feeling that if McCarron played, you would have the Battlehawks win. I figured it was going to be to me, I like a score like this. For the casual fan, they would say it's ugly. For me, as a football fan, I like it. Because it forces strategy to come into play. And with McCarron's presence, that is what the Battlehawks needed. They got what they needed, and his presence did it because he actually willed them to a victory and willed them to the division title. In terms of what the Brahmas bring, this is the type of game they like to play. I mean, they lead with defense, obviously, but they just needed offensively to put forth more points. They just could not do it. And sometimes, like I said, even when you play physical like this, with the earlier Jeff Fisher analogy that I used before, sometimes you're the hammer in the situation, sometimes you're the nail. And in the Brahmas case, they were the nail because they did not make that one play that they needed to make, and the Battlehawks did.
You're absolutely right. I mean, it all comes down to that final play. I mean, and how time's are ticking right there at the end. You gotta do your job. You especially on special teams when it comes to when we go back to, like, say, a team like the Panthers from the day before. I mean, special teams made a difference in this game a little bit. That one turnover made a difference in this game a little bit. There's a bunch of different factors that when it comes down to the end and the clock strikes 0, you have a lot of different things to look back on the entirety of the 60 minutes to say, we could have done this one thing different and the game would have gone in a different way. But then when you have multiple elements that add up and you still lose by 1 point, and you have a lot of those cases throughout the entire 10-game season, and you're here, you got a lot to think about this offseason, whether it's with personnel, which, of course, you're going to have to get different personnel. You have to get Tyrone Alizé McDummy out of the house. You're going to have to get him out of the house. And please defend me here.
Oh, because his name is Alizé? Yeah. Gemini. Say hello to a guy that we affectionately call Tyrone Alizé McDummy.
Ain't nobody calling me.
Okay, that's
delete, 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 delete.
That's no.
Unfortunately for Alizé Mack, that is his name. But we have, when we think of Cowboys fan, we have what you just saw, the guy singing and crooning as if he thinks he's Brian McKnight or something, or somebody. So yeah, we named him Tyrone Alizé McDummy, and there is a player on the Brahmas named Alizé Mack.
And somebody unnamed was genius enough to come up with the comparison between the two, and they're both in Texas.
And the person that came up with that ingenious one is the one that now is not talking. Wow.
Hey, you got to get creative with context to toot your own horn sometimes. I just tried it a little bit. But Gemini says, laugh out loud, oh my God, that's really him. Well, we appreciate your first time. Please,
man, it is good that you're here, Gemini, man.
Click that subscribe on that Comey Media channel that you're watching on right now, and hook my man Cole up with let's get those.
I appreciate
my man's
that,
only
man.
30 subs away from 100, and I remember what it was like once you get to 100, then they start kind of rolling in a little bit after that.
Yeah,
it's a gradual process. You know, the cool thing about with Sartoba is, you know, we got a mixture of different things out there, you know, besides just one thing. And I've attracted different people throughout different shows that's on there. So, and you got the same thing,
that, brother.
And you got the first, thank you. Yes. And you got, between that, you know, you got the same thing with the other projects going on too. It's going to get there. Just this time has to keep on a ticking, and more content out there, more like this, more powerful, energetic content from Co and myself out here in these streams. But, you know, we've got that right there. We talked about the Dumpster Pelican teams.
Thank you, my brother. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. We got the, yes, sir. Thank you. Likes and subscribed is definitely awesome. So that definitely helps him out there in the streams. And we are also, if you want to check out Sartoba Media, you can check us out. That's where we collaborate between the two. So
great programming.
Thank you. Thank you. They tell me I'm modest, but you guys can say whatever you want, and I will put a smile on the face with that. But with that being said, you know, we've gone through our opening drive here, and we talked about our 4 games that we had to culminate for Week 10 action in the UFL. Before we go to the Gridiron Scoop, we're going to take our first commercial break, and when we come back, we'll go through the rundown of the Gridiron Scoop. We'll see you on the other side of that first commercial break.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989 on 2. Ready? Quick.
We're just getting started. Total Football Talk will return right after this. Whether it's news, the largest egg producer finds bird flu in chickens at a Texas plant, weather, devastating tornadoes rip through the heart of the United States, inspiration, a breast cancer survivor completed the journey of chemotherapy, and now begins a future one of matrimony or sports. Michael Jordan is shown on a photo with Diddy. LeBron James has a video extolling the virtues of a Diddy party. This has been yet another beating a dead horse presentation. We got you covered. BS3 Network proudly presents The Morning Shift with Cole Johnson, live every weekday morning beginning April 29th at 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central. Hey, Eagles fan. Join my man Cool McCain and a host of others as they break down every single game, every single week in an objective manner, and also from a fan's perspective as well. Remember, this cast feels just like you. Nobody likes you. And you don't care. Fly, Eagles, fly. Eagles Elite Podcast. Every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and other podcast outlets.
everything Boston. I love you morons. You kids from the block, New Edition.
Dear whatever the law firm is.
Sincerely, the U.S. Supreme Court.
Ben Affleck, Matt Damon. Go yourself again, Jason.
Welcome back to Total Football Talk, your source for hard-hitting gridiron action. We are just done recapping the UFL Week 10 action as the BATTLEHAWKS clinched the XFL division in the UFL with the win over the BRAHMAS. We are here for episode 40 today to bring you that action. Myself and Co are back to discuss what we have on tap for the remainder of this show. And with that being said, we have to take that into the next part, and that is the Gridiron Scoop. Here with the Gridiron Scoop there, Cole, you know, we'll get back to the UFL here in a second, but
All right.
Dalton Kincaid says that he's ready for an increased role in 2024. And, you know, this very young player definitely had some highlights in 2023. You know, will he excel with the increased role in 2024 or will he falter?
Actually, I think he'll excel. And the reason why I think he'll excel is you don't have Stefon Diggs in the room anymore. And I'm not dumping on Stefon Diggs. I think he's a talented wide receiver. I believe he wants to win. So it's not a knock on him. It's just for the fact of you have this guy, you bring him in when off of Minnesota. You want him to contribute to the team. And it looks like he and the quarterback, Josh Allen, actually get together and have a really good chemistry together right off the bat. And everything seemed to be fine until you started to see the maturation process of Gabe Davis. And then you start seeing the maturation process of a Dawson Knox. And then the fading of him comes, and then you see Dalton Kincaid come into the picture. I like him because I think Josh Allen likes him, and he's going to get more targets now. And the reason being is for some reason they just love to throw a little more than I would like for them to do it. And they like to have their tight ends block, of course, for the run, but they actually like to have them have hands. So obviously they drafted him for hands. They drafted him to have to be the option so that you can take the heat off of Gabe Davis, because he's now no longer there. So you now need to have somebody that is a safety valve for Josh Allen for him to run less. And one of the two safety valves you can always have is a running back out the backfield or a tight end hitting the seam. So I think this will be a plus for him, and I think he will thrive. Unfortunately, what isn't thriving is
you caught a case of my juju earlier, and I caught it right back. with that, you know, you got to look at what Dawson Knox did. You know, and is there two tight end punch last year, and now you got Dalton Kincaid, and even with Dalton Kincaid last year, you know, he played in 16 of those 17 games, started in 11 of them, had 73 receptions for 673 yards. And 2 touchdowns. He did have one fumble and lost it, but I mean, he was a rookie. You know, you can't put so much past him. But as a rookie, he averaged 9.2 yards per reception. That's pretty solid.
That's good for a tight end. Yeah.
Yes. To me, you know, I feel like with the Buffalo Bills snagging him at the 25th overall pick in that type of production, that's a kind of a steal to get that at 25 right now. Now we could talk about this in 4 years after he's had 4 and 5 years in the league and see if he was consistent with his production and if he lived up to his words for an increased role in 2024. But I feel like with those numbers that he warrants that increased role in for that team, that he deserves it. And we shall see, you know, again with that. And He played in 2 postseason games last year. As they went to 2 games last year in the postseason. 8 receptions, 104 yards between those 2 games, averaging 13 yards per reception, and had a touchdown. All that as a rookie as well. So when you add that with the other numbers, I mean, that's still a really, really, really stellar season. So, but yeah, definitely, I agree with you on Dalton Kincaid. He deserves an increased load for this upcoming season, and we'll see how that pans out. And moving on down the slate, let's take it back to the UFL. And, 40 years of experience wasn't enough for CJ Johnson to lead the Houston Roughnecks to a winning season. Should we expect to see a change at head coach, or will Johnson get a mulligan as a result of this year's league merger?
He's got to go. I mean, I'm sorry. The team isn't really listening to him. Obviously, the team really didn't listen much to him when he was the Gamblers head coach, and they're not listening to him now. So something just isn't working. Something in the milk isn't clean. Take whatever idiom you would like to use and apply it. He's not the man for the job. Now, could he be a consultant? Sure, but a head coach, not so much. And yeah, you can say, well, Cole, you're firing a black guy off of a team as head coach. Well, sorry, this is a results driven. It's a results driven business. Your skin color could be, I don't know, purple. If the W's don't come and the L's pile up, the pink stuff comes. I don't care who you are. So yeah, the Roughnecks need to move onward, and they actually have to have rebuilding in their minds.
Absolutely, they do. And, like you said, they weren't listening to him. If they were listening, they would have fought a little bit harder. I mean, looking back, whether you watch the game in the Dumpster Pelican Bowl or not, and, I could only, I'll be honest, I could only deal with the quarter and a half. After the first quarter and a half, I switched it to something else. But at the same time, yeah, and I was like, I can catch the highlights for the rest. I was like, we already knew going into this game this was going to be the worst game of the week. So I focused my time on the games that matter. Didn't watch that one as much. But what I will say is it was very evident what you're saying is, the body language. Like you got the man, he's saying stuff, but they're not really receptive to what he's saying. In 40 years as a coach and experience between that and a player in professional football, you would think that they would be all eyes and ears. There's some type of character dynamic, maybe with you have the information, but you're just not relaying it the best. Could be tones. Tones are everything with people, and how you carry yourself with your message. So maybe just maybe that's just what it is. Maybe he's just his style of coaching is for a game that's not the same anymore. Like the game has changed so much in the past 5 years alone, let alone the past 10, and then definitely way different than what we saw 20 years ago. And his style of coaching just might not be relevant to what we have for today's game.
I mean, I look at it like this. Yeah, if you see a team, if you see a whole team tune out a guy, you know that the next move has to be you got to find somebody else that galvanizes the team. Now, I got a chance to witness the Renegades Roughneck scrimmage, the preseason scrimmage before the UFL season began. Nice guy. I like him. He's one of those raw type guys. It's cool, and you can get with them. But if unfortunately you have that experience, but let's be honest, if the players who are in their 20s, you might have 1 or 2 or 3 in their 30s that play that's on the UFL roster. You're looking at a guy that most of them will say, "Oh, that's like my grandfather." And look, look, grandfather types are wonderful. And yes, they can pull out a nugget that makes you say, "Dang, I I got to think about doing life different. But normally the thought process with grandfathers from boys is, yeah, he's a cool guy. I don't feel that threatened. I don't feel that threatened from. I'm not galvanized actually so much by him. Unfortunately, because grandfathers don't really have that feel for the most part. There's more along the lines of, look, I said this. Look, you don't believe me, you can fail. I don't give a crap. That's pretty much how it's pretty much how a guy who has 40 years of coaching experience or a guy in his 60s pretty much would be. It's like, okay, look, I'm telling you the truth, but if you don't want to follow, what I'm saying. You want to bump your butt, but don't come back to me saying, wow, you was right, coach. I told you all along. They need to have someone a little younger and more someone that they can relate to, where they can actually feel inspired by him and probably be prodded by him too.
I like that. And like you said, it's kind of like the grandpa giving the wisdom, even though, maybe not in game of sport, but in real life, you're going to take the
Yeah.
wisdom, it'd be a lot more receptive to it. But,
Mhm.
it's like today's players are more receptive to somebody who was in the trenches with them probably 10 to 20 years ago, as opposed to 30 to 40 years ago. When it comes
Exactly.
there's nothing wrong with them being like other voices, other mentors on the team.
No.
Distance,
Not at all.
because they are just as big of a position and just as meaningful. But of course, you need to have like your head honcho that can relate to both sides, somebody that's in
Mhm.
between both, that can relate
Yeah.
to the older message, but also be able to take that message and relay it to the younger generation without there being any qualms.
Now here's sort of an anomaly type. Andy Reid. I mean, he's in his 60s now, but now he has the cachet of, look, you don't believe me, I got 3 rings to show for it. He can play that role now, and he can play that game now if he wants to with players. But what's the one thing you normally hear from any player that plays with him? It could be Patrick Mahomes, it could be Travis Kelce, it could be Tyreek Hill, it could be anybody that played for him.
He's relatable.
He's relatable. So even though he's in his 60s, he actually can relate to somebody in their 20s, and is willing to actually, like you said earlier, and I agree with you, willing to get down the trenches and be there with them, and willing to actually show that, okay, what you do matters to me, and I'm showing it does.
That's why, hiring coaches who are 35 to 40 years old, like in Andy Reid's case, he was like 39 or 40 when he took over as the head coach for the Eagles. You're growing with the organization, like you're growing up with these guys. So, music that, like, by the time we're here, music that they were growing up on, Andy Reid, they were bumping all that in the locker room. So I bet you he can get down with them with stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
easily.
so anything, especially with as hard up as Philly was. Philly's a hard town. They're listening they were listening to probably some Tupac, some Biggie, all sorts of stuff back then. So he can definitely relate to that when Patrick Mahomes like want to throw it on the throwback. And yeah, you've heard so many stories about how he can be relatable just in culture, let alone the game of football.
And it translates because he can relate culturally with the players. Then it makes the players say, I like that guy, I'm gonna fight harder for him. And if you get 53 guys that believe the same thing, well, we witnessed it the last 2 years in the NFL.
And Sick backs us up, says, when it comes to leadership, communication is key. So
that's one of the biggest keys. Yeah, that's one of the biggest keys. You got to relate to the people who you're supposed to lead. And if you're not willing, and a leader has to extend the, I won't say olive branch, but he has to extend the understanding of, okay, I want this to be executed, but basically what you do helps me out. So what you do helps me out, but my ultimate role is to what I do is supposed to help you out too. So it's a two-way street. Take care of your side of the street. I'll take care of my side of the street. And if you can't relate that to your charges, then you're going to have issues and problems.
Absolutely. Teamwork definitely makes dream work. There is no I in team. even with the successes, like, for example, like what we've got out here with the media, I mean, we can have our own individual brands, but I don't know one person who individually has their own brand that hasn't had their successes without help from other people.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's collaborations or seeking out help with putting things together. Like, there's no person that I know personally or even follow that doesn't have some sort of team behind them. So, and that's the same thing with sports. Like, media and all this stuff that we do is very similar. And the only way that you can do this all by your own is if you don't have to go to work. Like, you don't have to work a full-time career, which everybody out here that we collaborate with works a full-time job and or at least a part-time job to be able to counterbalance if they're already making some revenue. Some that I know that have some revenue, they have like part-time gig or whatever. But most of us that are doing this, we're seeking the dream, but we still have to work our careers in order to keep up afloat to be able to afford the things, because none of this stuff is free that we're doing with all these graphics and the streaming and stuff. So same thing with football, team sport. You got to be able to have the right aces in places, from coaching to personnel that are playing to people in the front office making decisions, to have all these people here. There's a lot of parallels to everything when it comes to sport and life between the two. So,
and I don't care who you are in terms of sports. There isn't a bigger team sport than football.
Nope,
there isn't one.
Which is why when I thought when you and I talked about, now reflecting back after 40 episodes, talked about a show like this and how passionate we both were about football, it just makes sense, because I love baseball, not quite to the extent of football, but I don't think I could do a show with just baseball. Like, I can do a show and have multi-sports and stuff and include baseball with it, but I can't sit here and talk for 2 hours about baseball. But we can sit here and talk for 2 hours about football. Hell, we've talked for 4 hours over football at other points in time in earlier episodes. So
we have.
The struggle is real to contain our enthusiasm with football. Now, when it comes to that, we got one more part of the Gridiron Scoop, and this is a topic when it comes to the recap of the overall 2024 UFL season. We talked about week 10, but to kind of culminate the recap of it, I have 3 questions alone for you, and we'll start with the first one. Looking back on all 10 weeks that we've covered, for UFL, what are some of your most memorable moments that you can think about when it comes to this first inaugural UFL season between the two leagues?
If it's off the field, I actually have to say, getting a chance to see Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and actually to a much lesser degree than I thought I would, Danny Garcia pump the UFL, because it seems like this time around this has been more something that Dwayne has pushed as the front facing authority figure than with the XFL last year. I've just noticed that for some reason I think they're taking a different tack this year than last, and it's noticeable. It's like, okay, so they were more visible last year with the XFL, and they're now a little less visible. Not saying that's a good or bad thing, but it just was a memorable thing for me, because I remember when Rock was actually promoting WrestleMania 40 and UFL at the same time back in April. I was like, wow. And most of that talk really was centered around personal political talk and wrestling. Very little was UFL. I was like, that's really interesting. Wow. But that stuck out like a sore thumb. On the field, I have to say, other than of course the 1-9 Roughnecks, to me, I think you have a star still, even with him missing a field goal with no time remaining this past weekend. I think a star is born in Jake Bates, because there's not every day you have a kicker that can come around and give you a 64-yard field goal.
Nope.
Twice.
With timeout in between. Yeah.
Yes.
They froze him and he kicked another 60, and then the next week, yeah.
So, I thought that was a great way to begin the season. I was like, wow, okay, so this is going to be really interesting. This is going to be different. Uh, the one thing that has really, the two things that has really impressed upon me in general, besides Jay Bates, it would have to be, well, three. It would have to be, of course, the fight of the Renegades, because they were like the little engine that could for a good long while, and I'm glad to see that they won 3 out of their last 4. Uh, I was hoping that they would, learn the lessons of having that almost but not quite, and having enough of them build up to where it doesn't destroy the morale of the team, and it did, and it seemed to actually galvanize them. That was one thing. Obviously, the Stallions just simply acting like stallions on the field and just running roughshod over teams. Of course, until the last couple of weeks, but still executing flawlessly offensively, and defensively they were trying to hang with them, saying, "Well, wait a minute, yeah, well, our offense can score over 30 points, but we're no slouches over here either." So that was good to see. I was witnessing a lot of struggling with coaching staffs with philosophy. I don't understand it when you're playing a game that requires physicality, and we have seen many games that seem to devalue it. And to me, I have a hard time reconciling that. I mean, yeah, you could be cute and throw the ball 40, 50, 60 times a game, but the battle is won or lost in the trenches. I don't care how good or bad you are. And I was seeing some strategies where I just scratched my head and I'm like, this is a football game, right? This is a football league, right? And they are tackling, and they do have pads in the helmet, right? This isn't flag football. There was times I actually caught myself thinking that, and and which made me glad that we had teams like the Stallions and the Brahmas and the Panthers, where they were like, okay, we'll bring you the physicality, because that's what we're all about. And that's the last thing that really impressed me. The teams that I really, really, really dug were the Panthers and the Brahmas, because they played that physical, I put this in quotes, ugly style, but I love it, because it is like, okay, we're gonna line up, we're gonna put our hands in the dirt, we're gonna come up off the snap, and if you can put us to the dirt, cool, but our goal is to put you to the dirt. That's the type of football I like, and those two teams to play it the way I like to see it. So it was great to actually see outside of the lapses in strategy with some teams and some coaching staffs, two teams that get it. Two teams understand that football is, you got to be more man than the other, and that is what I take away from the inaugural UFL season.
That's a great take right there. Between that and, like you said, I'll look back on this, like you said, the Stallions absolutely running buckshot on this league
my
for the first
gosh.
8 weeks of the season. The first 2 months, nobody could stop
They couldn't touch them.
this team. Yeah, and the defense was just as good, if not better, than their offense. I mean, it was something definitely special to watch. And if you're a fan of football, you absolutely loved watching that team right there.
Yeah.
There's nothing bad you can say about what they did on this season. And overall, there's some teams that regressed. The Defenders definitely regressed quite a bit. I mean, they had a chance with the last game of the year to finish with a 500 record, but they just couldn't quite get it done and muster it over a really scrappy Renegades team that should have more than 3 wins this year. And like you said, it was great to see them get 3 wins out of their last 4 games after starting 0-6.
Yeah.
I remember that. Another big thing you brought up too was how it showed the overall teamwork within the UFL of not just the Rock as the face, or not just as the face, but the only one pulling the strings in the background. Because you had to have known that with everything that man's got himself dipped into, he cannot focus so much time on this. Like, he is an investor and owns, of course, part of it, but he's got his aces in place, just like other organizations, to run it and to keep it to where it's a sustainable business.
Mhm.
Because, if he spent and put his full focus on that, there'd be no way he would have been able to do WrestleMania 40 this year,
Close,
or the acting gigs that he has,
Right.
especially this new one he's training for the MMA fighter
Mhm.
movie that he's doing.
Right.
And then consider coming back to wrestle again at some point, whether later this year or within 2025.
Mhm.
So there's no way he would be able to pull all that off if he was focused on it. He's an owner, but primarily like a personality to help put fans in the seats, like
Right.
what we saw week 1. I would say that this season could have been a little bit more memorable had they put a little bit more time into marketing prior to the start of the season.
Good point.
Because you and I talked about it back in December when they first
Good point.
made the announcement of the merger.
Yeah.
Like, they
True
should have
story.
announced this several months ago. It
Mhm.
would have given them more time to do more marketing, as you and I talked about it on this show back in December when the merger happened.
Yeah.
But they didn't really start advertising for the league until right around the
February?
Super Bowl.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, that's right. February. That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah, February.
It was
You're
February, yeah,
right.
right around the Super Bowl.
Mhm.
You and I are talking about then about, then now they're finally getting the
Mhm.
advertisements out. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what the viewership's like. And
Yeah.
I feel like that the viewership has suffered a little bit because they didn't get their
did.
marketing team on the ball a little bit sooner.
It
So
did. Wonderful.
I'm gonna
point.
thank you. And I'm gonna remember that. And hopefully they learn from that too. We can see some better preparation from the UFL marketing team on when they're playing. Also, they may want to adjust when they start the season.
Mhm.
Now, whether it's a little bit sooner or a little bit later, that can be up for debate for another episode. But what I will say is the one part that I did think was cool, at least for the way that it started, was we have football once week 1 of the UFL started every single week until the end of this calendar year, until the end of 2024. There is not a week that we don't have
That's
live professional football to talk about from the moment that the UFL kicked off with week 1. Because as we're wrapping up week 1 of the UFL and getting ready for the playoffs to talk about here at the end of the show,
Mhm.
we also get to announce the week 1 matches for the CFL that starts in 3 days. So 3 nights from tonight, you'll see your first CFL game of the 2024 season, and we'll get to that. But those are some great memorable moments that you had, and I feel the same as about as for mine. But continuing on with this topic, will this season be one that will be remembered decades from now? Based on everything that we just said, will people look back on the inaugural season as something that's remembered? Will this league even be a thing, do you think, decades from now?
I think it can be, and I think it probably will be. I think the reason why it can be remembered decades from now is you had a team in the Stallions that actually were head and shoulders above everybody else, and they actually were prolific on offense, and they were they were dynamic on defense. And to me, I think they are the main attraction, in my opinion, to season 1. It's hard for me to. I mean, it's hard for me to think of another entity that actually outshone them throughout this season. But I would say, yeah, going forward, yeah, and if they continue, UFL play their cards right, I think this could be one of those situations where, in my opinion, I think the road they should take is actually have it be like the NFL's version of the G League, where you get in partnership with the NFL, and it's a pipeline. And I think if that happens, you will definitely be seeing the NFL years and years and years from now.
Well said. And along with that, and learning from, I wouldn't say mistakes, but learning on how they can improve something that's already going okay, but how they can make it a little bit better, along with your announcements and your marketing and stuff like that.
Mhm.
All that can make a difference. But if they don't learn any lessons, if they pretty much run the UFL like Vince McMahon ran the last 20 years of WWE,
Gosh.
then we will not see this league 20 years from now. And none of this will
100.
be as much remembered, except for if you go back and look at old episodes of Total Football Talk.
Mhm.
So, that's where it is. I mean, and if you're watching this on Twitter or X or whatever, I don't understand. Maybe somebody can tell us in the comments why after 90 days, you can't watch the live stream anymore on Twitter. Like, you can only watch it for 90 days and then you click on it and it doesn't play. So I don't even know what's up with that. But shout out to YouTube for keeping our streams alive many, many moons away from each other and the live date. Gotta give a shout out to them on that one. But as we culminate that right there, I think like I agree with you. Like it can definitely be remembered, but they're gonna have to improve on certain things and improve on them pretty vastly if they want to keep things afloat when it comes to that. And the last part, this is our comedy question of this topic, and this being, should Tyrone Alizé McDummy or AJ McCarron retire after this season?
No for McCarron, yes for Alizé.
Yes. Absolutely. I wasn't even expecting that. I gotta do this for Cole.
Acknowledge me.
Gotta acknowledge how great that topic was. And again, if you're looking for football facts and shenanigans all up in one topic with this one,
You got the right one, baby.
I did what I could for you right there, because I agree that Tyrone Alizé McDummy needs to, 1, retire because of his statistical stat line, but 2, to avoid us calling him this for the remainder of his career if he continues to play after 2024. You just set yourself up, bro. Actually, your parents did, and then of course we had to name the guy out there with Tam, but I can't help it. But we had to do what we could out here for the shenanigans out here in these streams. But now that we've come to a conclusion for that, we've got to do one of our favorite parts of each episode, and that is acknowledge the grand champ of the week.
Total Football Talk.
Where are my dogs at in these streams? We got to acknowledge them. We got to acknowledge who Cole and I think are our dogs for the week. And starting off his dog of the week, we go with Cole.
Well, I think I have to make this one really simple. I remember last week in saying with the BATTLEHAWKS, if they were to want to win the division, they needed to have AJ McCarron step on the field.
Mm-hmm.
He did, and yes, he didn't wow you with stats. Heck, he even threw a pick.
Mm-hmm.
And only threw for 115 yards, but his presence was the deciding factor. And because of that, and because he knew that it was all about making sure that his team would win, and it wasn't because it was his stats, but it was because of his presence being on the field, I have to give it to him. I think his presence was literally enough for the BATTLEHAWKS to now host the BRAHMAS again this next week. And because of that, I have to give him the props, and he did it with a gimpy ankle. So yeah, that's my dog. He did it. He showed guts, and he pulled his team to a W in the division championship.
I like it. I definitely like your selection there with AJ McCarron. And honestly, I had a feeling you were going to go that route because of what you said last week. I mean, we were rounding out the show last week, and you basically said during our 2-minute drill, if they were going to have a chance of winning against the Brahmas and getting the conference, that they would have to have AJ McCarron in there and doing the best he could on a bad wheel to get it done. So when it comes to your selection for Dog of the Week, I'm going to have to, say that you made a huge, huge contribution with that, and a great one.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm conflicted, with mine. And I had a feeling that even still by this point, I was going to have a hard time deciding who I was going to go with. And I kind of want to go with a player, part of a team that's not going to be part of the playoffs. It's not going to be part of playoffs this year. Basically played their last game of the season this past week. And had it not been for that performance, this team would not have won. And I got to give it up to a man that I accidentally put in the slate as having only 2 passing yards, and that's Luis Perez. The man comes up there, throws 215 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. He did throw 2 interceptions, but he did do enough to lead this team to victory in this past week. And he has been someone who, with stats that he had the first half of the season during their losing streak, they were numbers that were better than teams that we were giving the dog of the week to. They were getting wins. Okay. Like he was throwing 200 and 300 passing yards, and they were 0-6. Okay. You can go look it up. Luis Perez was in the top 3 statistically in all quarterbacks in the UFL. Granted, there are only 10 primary starters, and I think less than 20 really have legit statistics throughout the entirety of the season, right? But for you to have those type of numbers, yes, we talked about how they had a horrible running core and how they could not get the ball established on the ground and move the chains with their running core. Now we have the highlight, which is Luis Perez throughout the entire year throwing dimes everywhere, but they can't convert it because they don't have a running game. When the other side knows that you're going to be slinging the rock 40 to 45 times a game, it's easy to prepare that when you don't have a play action that you can really run because you only have 10 to 12 carries in the game. They're going to be able to guess a little bit better when you only have that short amount of attempts. So when you come to this game, in this past week, yes, they weren't playing for much. You were just basically trying to keep the defenders from having a balanced season at 5-5, and you were trying to have a little bit more bragging rights to not have 2 wins only for the year and get yourself to 3, and you did. But, you also had Davion Smith, who jumped 20 carries for 94 yards. I feel like the production that he was able to do on that day on the ground, it helped Luis Perez, give him the ability to mix things up a little bit. And yeah, he threw the 2 picks, but if you look at the demeanor in which he threw the 2, one of them, I would say was his fault. The other one was the fault of the receiver because the receiver should have caught it. And if you try to catch the ball with 2 hands next time, you might not slip through and the defender get it. Okay. That's all I'm going to say about that. Luis Perez only deserved to have one of those 2 interceptions on that day. The game wouldn't have been as close, but yet they got lucky with sealing the deal because on the other end of it, you had Ta'amu and the special teams and all that. They were kind of lackluster, subpart of what they normally are to on a regular game day. So when I put all that in perspective and I think about, it's kind of like what you said with AJ McCarron and his leadership to help lead the Battlehawks to a victory in Week 10. I got to give the same thing to Luis Perez because if they had a different quarterback there, I don't see them winning that game, Cole. I really don't.
Yeah. And I don't either. But like I said, it just goes to show, and we picked 2 QBs who didn't have like the big time fantasy football stats, but their presence as a leader gave their teams the W. And really, when it comes to, especially now we're at Week 10, or I should say now we're past Week 10, we're talking about Week 10. It just goes to show how important it is that you have a leader as a quarterback.
Absolutely. And with that being said, speaking of leading the way, we're going to lead ourselves to one final commercial break. And then when we come back, we got to go through the featured attractions, along with a quick 2-minute drill to tell you about what we have in store for football and professional land this week. All that and more after this last commercial break.
Coming up next, the featured attractions. This is Total Football Talk. Comey Media Incorporated, creating content magic in the real world.
In a world where chronicles of the past are brought to the streams, whether the content is relatable or completely beyond your realm of life, there is no shadow of a doubt that this show is absolutely full of shenanigans. Get ready for
D. Willie in the Evening,
this Sunday at 10:05 p.m. Eastern,
exclusively on Sertova Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, look. Hey, stop playing games. Y'all already know. Go ahead and toss him some Willie Bucks. Ain't nobody playing around. $, D Willie 87. Go ahead, hit him up on the Cash App, and go ahead and give him some Willie the bucks. Look at Drew looking stoic, ladies and gentlemen, stoic on that $10 bill. So go ahead, slide my man over some Willie bucks, and we good. That's all I'm saying. We good. Some Willie bucks.
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Oh, yes. The tradition, the pageantry, the spectacle, the history, the slut. Wait. I gotta rep my brother's stuff right. All my DMV soldiers, stand up! And welcome to the Commander's Gridiron Report. You want your commanders to be repped right? Well, D. Willie is your man. Commander's Gridiron Report. Every Tuesday at 11:05 a.m. Eastern, 10:05 a.m. Central on the Sertoba Media YouTube channel. Music by J. Cool.
Where my soldiers, right side, commanders. Where my soldiers, left side, commanders.
Welcome back, Total Football Talk, your source for hard-hitting gridiron action. We are back for episode 40 on today's UFL Week 10 recap episode. Not gone through all of that, and we have to get to our featured attractions, where we got 3 main topics that we want to bring to your attention. And speaking of featured attractions, NFL legend Hall of Famer Larry Allen dead at 52. How much of an impact was his contributions during the 1995 season for the Cowboys and beyond?
He was considered, even back then, if not the strongest, one of the strongest offensive linemen ever in the history of the game. So that should tell you something. He was that. I've heard stories of him with defenders who would, especially pass rushers, who would have to battle him, and they actually said that he had this mean streak about him, that he played nasty, he played physically gritty, and that's exactly the way you want your offensive lineman to play. You want him to be that guy where it's like, okay, you're not going to move me off my square. You can do what you want, but if I get these paws on you, you have one or two choices. Either you can stay where you are, or you'll be tossed to the dirt. Your choice. And more often than not, when Allen got them paws on the defender, one of those two things happened almost all the time. I think I only saw him get off his feet once, and I'm talking about once his whole career, and it took Hall of Famer Reggie White to do it. So,
yeah,
so it had to be one of the most elite defenders ever.
Yeah, to have one of the most elite defenders ever,
but
he to do that. Awesome. Yeah, like for you to even bring that stat line up, like, guy's pretty special. If you can only think of one person that could only really move him around, because he was literally like an appliance. Like, there's already William the Refrigerator Perry. I don't want to call him that, but he was a deep freezer full of food. Okay, like it's a deep fridge. I don't know. We come up with a better name for him, but his first year in the league with the Cowboys, it was when they won their 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years. He came in at the tail end of the dynasty. He wasn't there for the whole thing, but he was at least there to still get a ring. And I think, if I remember right, he played with the 49ers his last year or two in the league. If that's right, I know he didn't finish with the Cowboys. I believe Tony Reale, our stat man out there, sick diggy.
I have to check.
Yeah, let us know. I'm pretty sure we got to keep rolling, but let us know if he finished with the 49ers. I want to say that he did, if I remember that right. But Jim and I has had a couple of things to throw in. I'll go ahead and call out real quick. He gone. He did not have any control over his team, and we were talking about the coach over there in Houston. He really didn't transition well. It was like he didn't even know the rules or what was going on. Absolutely. It's okay. We still got Barlow.
100. That's a great point, bro.
Yep. and you feel kind of bad because the league screwed, almost like setting him up when they didn't let them stay with the gamblers. Yes. Mark Thompson was directing him. Disrespecting. No. Oh, it was Mark Thompson was disrespecting him. Okay.
Mhm.
Coach Beck, players love him, and he has a kid in college. Okay. 68-yard field goal, week 1. For a minute, I thought I was going to have to put out an APB for Danny. And 64. Yeah, it was a 64. About to say, I didn't remember. I was about to say I didn't remember 68, but yeah, 64.
Yeah, 64.
Was back-to-back 64-yarders
Yeah.
because they tried to freeze the
That's
kicker and he
crazy.
kicked him back-to-back. And you could tell
That's
it was a takeover, not a merge in a lot of aspects.
Oh, that's a good point, Gemini. Yeah.
That is a really good take. You know, you kept some of the names from the other league and some of the people with the franchises, but it's definitely a takeover. You know, I definitely agree with that. And when it comes to that, you know, based with our features attractions, we still got a little bit more on the slate.
Who's giving them the business?
Now, keeping it with the NFL, you know, Justin Jefferson to become the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history with a $140 million deal. Does a star wide receiver deserve the lucrative deal in place, in your opinion there, Cole?
Well, if the money's there, yes. And the only reason why I'm saying that is I don't really try to dig in players' pockets. My philosophy has always been a player is worth whatever an owner is willing to pay him. And if one owner is not willing to pay him and he can find a deal elsewhere that's better, okay, go find that deal elsewhere. Even if that means it's a team, if the owner is stopping somebody on the team that I root for, if the player feels his value is not there on the team, but he feels as though it's somewhere else, fine, go get it. So with Justin Jefferson, I think this day was coming for him. And I mean, what I mean by that is I really believe that the Vikings was going to stick with him and slide him the big time deal and say, we want you here. And if we could slide you the next deal too, we want you to retire as a Viking. I think that is the feeling and the vibe I got almost as soon as they drafted him. And definitely the first year, definitely his rookie season. I was like, okay, all right, I think they really want this guy long term. So here we are. It looks like the coaching staff loves him, the organization loves him, and here we go. I think we're going to see more entertaining things come from probably one of the most talented wide receivers we have seen in quite some time.
Absolutely. I agree with that wholeheartedly on that. I mean, they let go of Stephon Diggs for, you know, right now they bring in Justin Jefferson, which is funny that, you know, it seems like when teams are making moves with younger receivers, Diggs seems to be the one that's getting the boot because he's being a diva. But we'll see if he's learned from the era of his ways with your team in 2024. Let's hope so. I hope you can get the most in max potential out of Stephon Diggs because he's had a lot of flashes in his career, right? And Justin Jefferson has definitely been a great piece to bring in to kind of let you forget about. You let that star talent go because so far in Justin Jefferson's career, you have, if you're a Minnesota Vikings fan, when it comes to your receiving core and their production throughout the regular season, you have not regretted the fact that Stephon Diggs is not there anymore. Okay, the fact that he has moved on because you've got Justin Jefferson. So looking at that and what we've got here, $140 million, I say he deserves his bank. And now, as of what he's done to this point, because keep in mind, everybody out there watching, generally when you get your contract, it's as a result of what you've done up to that point. Okay.
Right.
There's a lot of times, and it's historically proven, how once you get your money, you have a drop-off season somewhere, somehow. There's not many people outside of like Tom Brady or Kobe Bryant, who Kobe Bryant was underpaid, you know, because he took pay cuts to keep the team, you know, as contenders and then got back pay at the end. You know, there's other players that'll do like that, like Mahomes doing in Kansas City at the quarterback. There's not many people we can say that once they got their contract or at least name on two hands that we can say that once they got that big money deal that they were consistent enough afterwards that they earned that contract into another contract.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And Justin
I agree
Jefferson
with
is
that.
still young enough to do that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Uh, this is his prime deal. Now, after hopefully he performs well in that contract, I think the Vikings would want to, if he doesn't get injured or has that decline as you just mentioned. I think they want to give him his retirement deal too. I can see that. I can totally see that.
Yeah, and I mean, it just depends. Health is key. Will he stay healthy? I don't know, and you don't know at this point either. But so far, he's doing his job to make us think that he's definitely worth this money now. So, could this be his final contract? If it is, he made his money and he earned it up until this point, right here.
Who's giving them the business?
Last thing we got here for the featured attractions on the day, the Eagles and Falcons are under fire for tampering with Saquon Barkley and Kirk Cousins prior to the start of free agency this offseason. How much will the ramifications from these consequences affect these two teams this upcoming season?
Not much. Not much at all. And the reason why I really am not why I'm nonplussed about it and why I'm not moved all that much by it is this goes on. Let's be honest. We have watched enough off-season NFL stuff to know that teams tamper. Teams throw pitches at guys that they want on their teams long before they make it known they're free agents, or long before they say to the team that they're currently on, no, I'm not going to take the franchise tag, or I'm not going to take another deal that you offer me. I'm going elsewhere. This takes place. And so basically this is nothing more. It's going to be nothing more than a slap on the wrist. The team probably gets some sort of fine they could sneeze out of their behinds. And that's that. I mean, it would make an impact if Cousins was no longer a Falcon and Bucky was no longer an Eagle. Do we think that's going to happen? No. So the damage is minimal to the point where the teams are like, okay, here's the fine money. Bye, Roger.
Do you think it could still cost them, like in other cases where we've seen them get in trouble with tampering, cost them draft picks or something for the upcoming season?
If it's now that's a horse of a different color. If it's a case where they try to do negotiations before the season was over, then a draft pick probably could be an offering to be pocketed by the Shield. But knowing them, they probably reach into like the 6th or the 7th round to do it.
Okay. I wonder how they even figure that out, because, I guess it's to the magnitude of how bad the tampering is. Because it's not really cut and dry out there when you do the research on it, on how much tampering there was, how early it was, all that good stuff. So when we think about that, it's going to be interesting to see, we're going to see the ramifications from it happen this week. But I'm with you. I don't think it's going to affect them so much this season as it could potentially affect them down the road for a year, next year, 2025 or 2026. Depending on the magnitude of it, it would depend on, I would say, how high up the draft pick goes. Like you said, maybe a 7th round or a 6th round. It's pretty considerable. Like, some Patriots disciplinary actions from back in the day, maybe a 2nd or 3rd round pick, or even a 1st round pick if it's that bad. But I guess we'll see. But I figured that'd be something good to throw out there for you before we head to our favorite segment of the week, as it comes up right now. Oh, yeah, it's that time again for the Snowflake of the Week. When it comes to the Snowflake of the Week, I'm going to let Cole lead the charge and give us his choice for the Snowflake of the Week.
Snowflake of the Week. Actually, it's going to be two. It's going to be a team, and it's going to be a player. You already heard my team Snowflake of the Week. It's the Houston Roughnecks, but I'm dedicating this portion of Snowflake of the Week to one Alizé Mack.
Yes! Ain't nobody calling me,
Thanks, son.
me, paging me, asking me, are you still involved?
Hit that note, son. Hit it again.
Calling me, texting me, paging me, asking me, am I still involved? Y'all use the check on.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Ron, what do you got to say, Ron?
Out.
So, yes, Alizé Mack, you, sir, are my Snowflake of the Week along with the Houston Roughnecks.
Ouch. That was great. And he even pulled out, we still found a way to get one more TAM clip before the end of this show. You've got to love it. And when it comes to that, it's going to be tough for me to, I don't know if I'm going to be able to one up that or not. It's going to be tough. It really is, guys. That was great. You know, like you said, the whole Houston Roughnecks team, you got Tyrone Alizé Mack dummy. Put it all in perspective, I think I'm going to take it to a running back core that really let their team down on this day. And, you know, there's been certain days where I've been really hard on this team, certain days where I've been kind of light on this team. Today, I'm not going to go light at all because I lit them up. And we were talking about them in the opening drive. And that's DC Defenders running back core.
Good choice.
Look at their stats one more again. Okay. When it comes to the Defenders running backs, they had 38 rushing yards on 12 attempts and 1 touchdown. I think when they came out there on that day, they were absolutely scared to take this. Oh, was that a total
Surprise, motherfucker.
No, I don't think so. Because when you look at how bad those numbers were, there's not many teams that can go out there, have that bad of a day on the ground, and still win the game. Oh, wait, hold on. One team can do that. The Memphis Showboats can do that when they have 15 attempts for 58 running yards for 2 touchdowns against a terrible team known as the Houston Roughnecks. They can't even defend grandmas out there, walkers, when they're trying to get to the end zone coming through their defensive line. Okay? So when I think about that, I think about how bad this Defenders team was. Again, 38 running yards, 12 attempts and touchdown. That is no typo. Go to foxsports.com and look it up. I promise you it's where I got my information from when it comes to their stats. But right here, right now, when you think about our Snowflake of the Week, you had a great choice right there with your selection. But I'm going to just attack the entire running back core of the Defenders because that is no core. It is a split core. It is absolutely dumpster pelican worthy. One more time, as they were the 1 and 2 of this week's list of Snowflakes of the Week. And if you don't like that,
you should know your role and shut your mouth.
Because if you don't like it, for real, we really need you to do this.
Stop it. Get some help.
That's where we really need this man to back us up in the comments. So, Cole, if you have a few moments of your creative genius this week, I'm voting at some point we have a milk carton transition with the Vicala. Just you don't have to put his face on it. You just put the Vicala graphic of Vicala in the milk carton, and we have it on this show. We need to find him. We need to bring him home. That's what we need out here in these streets. But real quick, before we take this on out of here, we're going to take this to the 2-minute drill and give you a little preview of what we got in store for the actual pro football at stake this week. We're down from 4 games a week to 2 in the UFL. And with the UFL this week, It's the conference championships. We have the USFL Conference Championship on Saturday, this Saturday, June the 8th at 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. You can watch it on ABC. The Michigan Panthers, who are 7-3, travel again to Birmingham. They might as well just stay where they're at, Just where they were just at this past week. Take on the Birmingham Stallions, who are 9-1. Cole, how do you see this game going with as close as it was last week? Do you think the Panthers can actually win this game?
I think they can. Do I think they will? No. And I really believe that the Stallions have come into this season with a point to prove. And I think they wanted to show that they were the best team in the UFL. And I really believe when they hyped up the game that was hyped up as the USFL champion versus the XFL champion, of course, they went up against Arlington Renegades. Back when the season began in late March, it seemed as if that whole organization was like, okay, we want the UFL championship. We want to be the inaugural champion of this league, and they have played like it. And when you have a team that is focused like that, it is very difficult to stop them. It's extremely difficult to contain them. But I'll give the Panthers credit. They, along with the Brahmas, have done the best jobs thus far this season in doing so. But I think what the Stallions proved is that they can withstand whatever the Panthers can dish out, and they have a little toughness to them, and they can execute down the stretch. So, as much as I love the Panthers, I think the Stallions have too much for them, and they're going to go on to the UFL championship.
I agree with you on that. And, they put up a really great fight this past week.
Yes, they did.
But, Jake Bates was humanized a little bit, not just this past week, but a few other times this season too that we've talked about, where he'll go 2 or 3 on the day, but miss a field goal that you would think he could make because of the hard ones he's made.
Right.
So early in the game when the pressure's not on, he can come through. But if you got a 20-19 game like you did this past weekend and you need him with 3 seconds left, the pressure's too big, they could potentially get him. Okay, and they could come down to that again this Saturday. And I think if it does come down to that again, then we're going to see the other team take the win again, and that being the Birmingham Stallions, a team, except for one time, and that was to the Brahmas, have won every single game, and they could have won that game too. So it's going to be interesting to see how things pan out this week.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
So we've got the Stallions moving on from the USFL conference to the UFL championship game the following week. But when it comes to the XFL division, the San Antonio Brahmas, who finished the season 7-3 on the year. 7-3. And the St. Louis BattleHawks, who also finished 7-3. But the BattleHawks win because the division because of the past week they had won against this team. They play each other on this Sunday on June 9th at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. Do you think that the BattleHawks have enough to do it again 2 weeks in a row, or did they exhaust everything to win the conference this past week so they can have the home game? And do you think that Bum Son can definitely overcome the struggle and lead his team mentally on the other side as the coach over the hump against this good BattleHawks team to get to the UFL championship?
I love Bum Son. I do. I've always loved him when he was an assistant coach for the Oilers back in the late 70s. I have loved him that much for that long. What I love about him is he has that youthful exuberance, especially with defenses, and they are galvanized to him, and they sell out for him. I mean, you look at any defense that he has been a part of, that's exactly how they are with him. They're fast, they're fleet of foot, and they try to cover every bit of ground they possibly can, from the line to the linebackers to the secondary. They just fly to the ball. They fly to a certain space where the ball's going to be going. I'm rooting for the Brahmas, not because I hate the BattleHawks. I don't. But again, my allegiance to Bum Son. I'm rooting for Wade. But if I put on the analyst hat, I think the BattleHawks will do it again. Maybe not 1 point, but I think they have two things to me that are at their advantage. Of course, this game is in St. Louis. To me, they had the advantage of stronger quarterback play with McCarron, and McCarron proved he didn't have to go fantasy football style to get the yardage necessary and to get the points necessary and to get the plays executed necessary to win the game. But his presence was enough. So you have that. And in my estimation and opinion, you have by far the greatest fan base in the UFL, hands down, not even a question. Number two, it's like one end of the Great Wall of China to the other. Not saying that the Brahmas don't stand a chance, but I believe that the Brahmas have a good fight and a good shot and a good chance. The Battlehawks just have the experience at the quarterback position, and that's going to bite the Brahmas in the butt.
It's going to be interesting to see how it all pans out, man. Like, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing how things can come from this. But at the same time, I just think that this Brahmas team can do it. I really think that they can. I really think that with what they displayed this year, even though they've done it with multiple quarterbacks, I think like this smack in the mouth this past week in a tight game showed them that, yeah, they needed their leader to come back. They had the more experienced squad on the other end, but this Brahmas team is really gritty, and I really like what I've seen from them all three phases of the ball when they don't play Tyrone Alize-McDummy. Okay. And if he's going to retire, like we said that he should, send him out with a ring. Okay. Send him out with a ring. But you need your entire team to be playing all facets of the game the right way. And, I feel like with the leadership from Bumson, even though as the head honcho, he's never got it done in professional football.
Right.
I feel like this is his opportunity to do so. He's done it as an assistant. He's done it as defensive coordinator, especially most recently with the Broncos, and had successes with other teams, but got over the hump, in the Super Bowl times with the Broncos that one year. But I feel like it's time for him to have the opportunity to maybe, if he doesn't win it, at least coach a team in a championship game. And I feel like they have a really good chance to do that. AJ McCarron's on a bum wheel. He had to give everything he had. And, 1 week of rest, I don't know after going out there if he's going to be good enough to get it done again 2 weeks in a row. So with that being said, I'm going to go with the Brahmas for this week. So you had to be Brahmas. We had to change it up a little bit.
Yeah, well, I ain't hating on that.
We'll see how it goes for next week when we're talking the actual UFL championship game. But now it's time we give a quick preview of the CFL.
Who's giving them the business?
So with the CFL week 1, it all starts this week. Everybody's at a 0-0 record. And the cool thing about the CFL is they have 4 games this week, but they're on 4 different days, starting from Thursday, Friday, Saturday to Sunday. There's 1 game per day and primetime action to give you a chance to watch it. All 4 games are on TSN. And you can watch Thursday night's game between the Montreal Alouettes and who travel to Winnipeg to take on the Blue Bombers at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. The next day on Friday, it's 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. You can see the Hamilton Tiger Cats and the Calgary Stampeders. And then the day after that on Saturday, you can see the Saskatchewan Roughriders taking on the Edmonton Elks at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time on Saturday on TSN. And then finally on Sunday, to round out the 4th game of the week, you have the BC Lions traveling to Toronto to take on the Argonauts at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time on TSN as well. And for that, we'll save the actual, our thoughts on CFL for next week, as we're here at the end of the show. There hasn't been but so much changes in the CFL since last year, so we don't really want to spend too much on this. We want to spend more time on this episode recapping the UFL season, as that's now over with only 3 games remaining, the 2 this upcoming weekend for the conference championships and in the UFL championship itself. So we're rounding it out with that league and getting ready to jumpstart it with the other. And with that being said, we got one more thing left to do, and that is take it to the post game.
As long as it's one.
It's great. I love it. I hope it actually is recording. Listening to it.
As we round things out here for episode 40, Cole, what are your thoughts as we get ready to take this into one awesome outro?
So even though we are now heading into the postseason of the UFL, and for all intents and purposes, for its first year of spring football of this particular brand of football, you could probably say it's a success. Now, is it a quantifiable success or a smashy one? The jury's still out on that. But at least we have continuity in spring football the last couple of years. Now, can it continue? Of course, again, horse of different color, and that will be remained to be seen. I think they have to make the right choices to get this league to matter in terms of it saying, to the marketplace, oh, it has a spot, it has a reason for it to be here. Okay, cool, got it. And actually, this satiates my fix for football from the spring to the summer. And when they're over, CFL picks up, and then training camp for the NFL starts. I can't believe training camp for the NFL starts next month. But there you have it. But all of that, and I think I am mostly focused on the thought of people still having thoughts of the controversial commencement speech heard around, well, I will say around the country, with Harrison Butker speaking to a Catholic crowd and talking about a woman's place and how society is. And whatever he says is fine. It doesn't really matter to me. He didn't say anything that would make me say, okay, yeah, kick him out the league, kick him off the team. No. My focus is on the NFL. They have this particular way of judging a thing not by the merits of the morality, but by how much the dollar signs reflect it. When they got wind of this speech gone viral, the NFL quickly pounced on it and said, well, this doesn't represent the NFL. We don't support nor condone the things that Mr. Butker said. But after that, number 7 red jersey ended up being the number 1 jersey seller in the entire NFL, the tune changed mighty fast when you heard the Shield basically say, quote, well, we have many different people of many different colors, many different shades, many different religions, many different philosophies. And we really believe that is what makes us all different. And it must makes the whole league great. 3,000 players, we all have to come together and embrace all of our differences. Close quote. Now, I agree with the second sentiment, but it makes me laugh with the first because y'all were thinking this guy was just a measly kicker that wasn't going to draw a dime. But when he drew a whole ton of dimes for you, the tune changed fast and went 180, which leads me to say the following. If you're going to police the NFL, don't do it with the pocket in mind. Do it with the heart in mind. Because it doesn't matter how much a guy sells. If you don't believe what the person is saying, stand on that. As they say, as the children say, stand on business. But if that's not what you're going to do, don't say anything at all. It's reminiscent of what my grandmother would always say to me when I was young and I was dumb at times and I said something flippant. When she would say, "Son, if you have nothing nice to say, shut your doggone mouth." And Shield, that's what you should have done this whole entire time.
Very, very, very well said. I need to listen to your grandma with the whole sometimes if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all mode, because I don't always follow that advice out here in these streams. Got to do a little bit better with that. But, you went one way with a kicker. And I'm going to go another. And I think you knew this was coming. I think you knew that I was going to save this for the very end. And the reason why I didn't bring it up in the topics, because my beloved team, the Washington Commanders, released their kicker they had just brought in this offseason, being Brandon McManus, after sexual assault lawsuit that's stemming from his time when he was in Jacksonville as the kicker there. That doesn't look good for Brandon McManus, a kicker who's been in the league for quite a while. I mean, he's not a spring chicken anymore, but he's also not too old to be in the league. He's only 32 years old. He spent quite a bit of time between the Indianapolis Colts when he first started and the Giants on the practice squads. Finally found himself a home in Denver and was there for 9 seasons, spending only 1 season in Jacksonville, and that was last season. And come to think that, that's your 1 season with a team, they wonder why you're not going to re-sign. You decided to sign somebody else. And this is obviously why. You got pretty far away from Florida in this moment to try to protect yourself, and apparently it didn't protect you well enough, because it's all coming back to haunt you in this point. So I got to say that, as we close this show out, that I'm pretty disappointed in Brandon McManus. Hopefully he learns his lesson. He's a Super Bowl 50 champion, winning a Super Bowl in his second season, in the league, as far as, second season actually playing. And he won it, on the back of that great defense. And he did his job for special teams when needed. But apparently he's not doing his job off the field. So when you have people like in Cole's case, where he was talking about with the inappropriate actions with words, and then apparently, we have McManus with just inappropriate actions as a human being out here with other people, and, male, female, whoever it is, you still did a bad thing out there with sexual assault to somebody. That's basically the description of, you did things and try to fornicate with somebody without their permission. Okay. And he did that. And that's the nicest way I can really put it here for the airwaves without really going too far into detail. But what I can say when it comes to Brandon McManus is this definitely is going to hurt his career. Things like this, you don't necessarily bounce back from, and we don't even have all of the details of the case yet, but the Shield does, and the Commanders have enough now that, it hasn't been that long since they signed him, and they're already releasing him before major training camp activities take place this summer. So we haven't even gotten to those points yet, and they're confident enough that it's that bad that he's going to be given some type of extensive punishment, that he's going to be someone who's going to cost them more than worth. And Brandon McManus was good enough and enough of a veteran to where he warranted a decent contract when he signed with them this offseason. So putting all that into perspective, thinking about his actions for one, and what he did as a human being, and what he did to affect a franchise that he just left, and then another one that he signed with, I said that's a pretty bad look on him, and that's going to be something that he's not going to be able to bounce back from anytime soon. I'm sorry. Unless he's cleared of all charges.
Well said, well stated. I echo 100% what you just uttered. I find it to be ridiculous, and I find it to be a punk move when a guy wants to show his strength in a wrong sense of fashion toward a woman. There's no place on earth for that. I don't care who you are.
Nope. And of course, we're younger. You got to learn how to, communicate. Communicate is key. You might not be the best at communicating. There might be arguments, but that's not even close to whatever the ramifications from that are to something like this. We can't even compare and contrast that. But you can't even boil it down to something as bad as communication, because, That's just bad. Like that's just so bad. And before we get on out of here, let's at least end it on a brighter note. We've got a few comments to acknowledge. Allen finished his career with the 49ers, so I was right. So our Tony Reale is here to hook us up. Getting those championship rings was a turnaround, I think, says Jim, and I would agree with that as well. The 2006 and 2007 seasons to be exact, when it came to Larry Allen in DC last year, was what Jim and I said about the championship rings and all that with turnarounds. Well, they didn't quite get the championship themselves, but that's a story for another day. They were close enough. The aspirations weren't fully there.
Right.
If they don't invest in marketing and advertising in the offseason, this league is going to flatline. Very well said. I don't think it's going
to drop them jewels, man. Yes.
Yeah, straight up dimes. I don't think it'll flatline next season. It'll take a couple years, but if you're stemming this along with our decades to come statement, then you're spot on.
Yes.
So I'll at least reiterate it with that. But a year or two, no, they're not going to go off that quick because of the sponsorships they have in play with the Army and stuff like that. They got backing them up. They're not going anywhere for at least another few years. But again, with what you said, spot on. Because if this happens for another couple of decades like this, or marketing at least for the next decade, they will not be around the decade to follow that.
No.
Michigan didn't start selling tickets until 2 weeks before the season started. Ouch.
That is problematic.
That's something that is we knew that it was a short period of time, but I didn't know it was that close. Even with everything we talked about, I didn't know that it was 2 weeks or less before the game started. No wonder why the numbers have been so bad. But at the same time, Michigan did that, and they've had one of the higher numbers between them and St. Louis.
Yeah.
So gotta give them the credit. Do that in 2 weeks. They need to start after the Super Bowl. Attendance is going down because people are going on vacation and graduating and living, and it's almost 100 degrees outside. Where six out of the teams are. So 6 out of the 8 teams, it's pretty hot out there in those streets, and they're trying to play right now in June. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Started a few weeks earlier. A few weeks ago, it was still in the 60s and 70s here on the East Coast, or at least here in Virginia. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. They can push it back a little bit, help them out.
Yeah.
And how old is Mac? Says laugh out loud. Old enough to where he's only getting 1 reception for 8 yards and not doing well to where he is on the dumpster Pelican list of production of players out here in these streets. But most importantly, you guys, thank you all for the comments. Thank you for our new commenter there, Gemini, for coming in and tuning in to Coming Media.
I love that.
Definitely coming in strong. Sick Diggy as well. Mickey Delaney, popped in for a minute, said he's sorry he's late, but then he took a nap again, I think. So we'll have to see him on the other side again. To everybody else who tuned in, whether it's through Ike as well and Playmaker, everybody else who's tuned in now while it's live or in post-production, thank you very much for your support. And to find me, again, I need to get on that flow code completion. I got half of it done. I need to finalize it. But lighten up my schedule and I can get to it. But, guys, this is where you can find me at with the links right here. Sartoba Media is the name for me and for Cole. The flow code is right here. You can find him on Comey Media and definitely support him in his work with the BS3 network as well with his morning show that he has Monday through Friday. You saw the commercial earlier in the show, but in case you didn't, it's right here. You can see his show Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern time for an hour at this time on youtube.com/BS3 Morning Shift with Cole Johnson. Definitely check him out. If you need a jump start to your day, something that's even better than folders in your cup, hit up my man Cole Johnson on YouTube and hook him up with another like and subscribe out here in these streets. And Cole did it. Cole, when we end the show, I need you to upload it to the in or out one, but this is the one that I was looking for. But to save you guys time and also the mystery, if you've never seen that before, you'll have to see the rest of that clip when you tune to In or Out Sports Debate tonight. We've only got one more thing to do, and that's for Cole to send us home before we get on out of here.
All right. I know that you have a wonderful show that's upcoming, so I'll do that now. I appreciate you. Thank you so much, man. And all of you, the tribe, and those of you watching, thank you for liking, thank you for sharing, thank you for commenting, thank you for subscribing, and thank you for hitting that notification bell so you can catch everything that comes from the Sartoba Media YouTube channel and the Comey Media YouTube channel. We appreciate you and we love you. For Drew Willingham, I'm Cole Johnson, here to say in parting as we always do. In life, just like a tackle, keep your head up. And always remember, you got to play until the whistle blows.
And follow that up with, as always, stay safe out here in these streets.
So long, everybody.